What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today we have none other than a competitive tier list for EX-10 Sinister Order. This is just based on what I'm seeing and trends on both sides, a little bit of local scenes and stuff like that, but also that kind of gives us a general idea of what might be going through people's heads of what decks they think, but also from my experience of watching these decks play. So without further ado, let's dive in the video and talk about it. So let's start it off. Bloomlord. Bloomlord is still a very solid tier 2 deck. The combinations that this deck plays off of really does shine. So I definitely think it's a very solid tier 2 deck. Phoenixmon has seen still some competitive play going through, but I think it's still pretty decently viable. Mirage still that one of deck. It does good, but definitely needs some sort of TLC, which again, we are going to be getting that sooner than later in March. So Mirage should be getting some new waves of support. Black War Greymon X. So again, we're going to get to the new Black War Greymon and where I think it actually does, but I think old school Black War Grey, even with the new tech and stuff like that, I would definitely think that it definitely boosts just Black War Greymon in general. The Ace, the new line stuff does help, so I think it's a very solid tier 2 deck. But there are, like, let's get Black War Greymon Ace out of the way. Definitely solid tier 2. The new style of play, you know, you can play with the X, but you could just play this with Gaiomon. So there's multiple ways of building the deck right now with the top end. So there's not really a wrong answer, shall we say. Galacticmon is straight up still very powerful of a deck, and it hasn't really lost anything, to be honest with you. It's gained a few better matchups, but that's about it. Chaosdramon, this is the slam down Machinedramon build. I think crazy strong, still tier 1 of a deck. We saw this come in clutch during regionals. We saw the adaptability is now there because the meta isn't as fast to your face. You know, when there was just all these Growlmon decks going underneath you too quickly, there was a problem, right? Because again, birds being able to have rush and everything else while you were trying to set up, if you didn't crack everything properly, you were just kind of in the wayside and you just lost the matchup. But I think the meta slowed down just enough of a hair for Machinedramon to get out of tier 2 to bring up to tier 1. And then DM Machinedramon, I think is still a very solid tier 1 choice. It has topped, but again, now there's like version 2, DM version 2, and DM version, you know, the DM 5. So both versions are very competitively viable for Machinedramon, and I think this is where it kind of sits. Hunters, good, but I think it's starting to fall down a little bit. It can do stuff against a lot of the tier 2s, but once it starts getting to the tier 1s, it has a little bit of problem. Rosemon, just give it, you know, better support at this point. I definitely think it's a tier 4. I don't call it a dead deck. It has competitively viable stuff at the low end, but nothing too crazy, right? Next, we do have Commandramons. Good, but give it better support at this point. It can sneak in some tops in the 3s in the 2 categories and maybe sneaks under some of the tier 1s, but Fenry Luga. Fenry Luga has gone through a small adapt change that they went with the Dark Animal engine, and it's definitely seeing some work in the meta. Nothing too crazy, but enough just to get people thinking. War Greymon, good, but definitely needs some sort of new wave of support. Yes, you got the new bottom end, but it's definitely more Black War Greymon focus than actually War Greymon focus. So just something to think about there. Then we do have the Digipolice. Good, but definitely give it better support at this point. It just doesn't do as much as what the deck should be hoping for, right? Metal Garurumon. Metal Garurumon still does a lot of work and still will present that work. The deck got a few more hits and they just hate Metal Garurumon at this point, but the deck still is sound enough. You know, you can play an Ultra S version, you can not play an Ultra S version. The deck still got a way of killing you. Old school Apocalypse, good, but definitely, I would say it's just give it better support at this point. Imperial Dramon, I definitely think is a very solid tier 2 deck. Would I call it tier 1? No, but definitely can go into the meta field very comfortably. Tyrant's good, but definitely needs some more support, right? I mean, Bugs in general just hasn't had another wave of support in a while, so it's just overdue. Dexteruga, the black base, still good, but definitely needs some more support. Same thing with the purple base. Argomon, definitely still a dead deck. The bunny deck, very solid tier 3 deck. Can still play confidently, but the fact that the DP threshold doesn't do enough really is showing its wares. Magna X, good, but definitely needs some more. I mean, you could definitely take it to a local scenes and it'll do pretty well, but competitive wise, there's just so much answers now that just still they get around him very comfortably. Ancient Gray, to be honest with you, I definitely put it too low. I think solid tier 2 deck. Very powerful. Ancient Garurumon, still solid tier 2 deck, still can do a lot. Eosmon, sees the right pieces, it can screw with 3 and 4s, but tier 2 and tier 1s are just a little powerful. I definitely say Omnimon is very powerful deck still, ain't going anywhere. Takamazuchi, this is Pulsemon version. No, this is not Pulsemon version because I have that. This one is Taka, the OTK deck. It's good, but definitely needs better support. Definitely tier 3. I mean, if they crack open the nuts, they crack open the nuts, right? But outside of that, nothing too crazy. Greymon, the low end, just give it better support at this point if you're going to try to do that. But with all the hits that happened, all the Mem Boost hits, and I mean not the Mem Boost hits, the Gravity Crush and the Blinding Ray hits, the deck got a lot slower. Emperor Greymon, the multicolor deck, good, but definitely needs more support. We're just gonna put this as dead because this one never really saw any competitive play. Magna Garuru, this is okay, tier 3, I would say. And this is Setcon. Setcon definitely has just fallen off. I would say not dead deck status, but still can really screw with a lot of decks. But again, pilot, it can lose to time rolls and stuff like that. I would say we still have purple hybrid still doing good. I would put it there. Fishies of the Ragumon. Definitely think it's a solid tier 2 deck at the local scenes. Dynasmon definitely needs new support. Lucimon. Ooh, this one I want to talk about because this one I was supposed to keep out because I was going to actually talk about New Luce. Where's New Luce? New Lucimon. Actually, very solid tier 2 deck. I would say off the bat, it's pretty close to tier 1. Confident Pilot can really make this deck shine the brightest, I think. Just keep an eye out on this. You don't know where this is going to go. I think it could creep to tier 1 if under the right pilot. I think we could put it tier 1, but like bottom tier 1. Watching the way it plays and stuff like that, not a lot of the tier 2 decks have answers to how the new Luce plays. I mean, yes, you could clear out all security, but at the end of the day, I don't know if that's going to be feasible. Royal Base, definitely dead deck at this point. Just doesn't really do much. Even with the promos it keeps getting. Dark Knightmon, I would say, has got some goodies to work with. I would put it tier 2 after seeing last format that it was doing some work in the tier 2 category. I can get behind it. Lord Knightmon, Levia, this one definitely tier 2, can definitely do some things. We're just gonna bring Luce to the bottom. Millenniumon, good, just give it better support. I think it can do some shenanigans at the local levels, but it's just too slow. We have Purple Imperial Dramon, definitely meta contender. I think very solid. Didn't really lose much. Genkumon, aka the Jesmon deck, definitely tier 2. I would put it tier 1 actually, because it had enough tops in the competitive scene at larger events, and I think even topped in Nats. So just keep this in mind. I think this is pretty solid to put, you know, the Turtle King. Next, we do have Gigaseedramon, definitely solid tier 2 deck, pilot dependent and everything like that. The Kazuchimon deck, good, but definitely needs some more support. Excel is definitely tier 3. Invisimon, the deck, definitely is classified dead deck. It just needs another couple waves of support and it'll be good. This is the Oryukin Chronicles deck. Good, definitely needs some more support. I think the promo's going to help it, but I think very solid tier 3 deck. Heavy Metal Dramon is tier 5. We're going to go tier 3 on Ghosties for now. Next set, I definitely think bring it up to tier 2. I think definitely once it gets its next wave of support, it's level 7. There's nothing holding this deck back. I think the new support is great for the deck. Very solid tier 2. Could easily probably get to tier 1 if, you know, all the stars align, right? Zephyga, definitely solid tier 2 deck. Confident Pilots and stuff like that do a lot with it. Royal Knights, definitely the hit was enough to cripple it a little bit, and it's showing. Then we do have Medusamon. Good, I would say tier 4 right now. Yes, it can do things, and under the right pilots, it could definitely feel like a good solid tier 3, but it definitely needs that another wave of support, and then probably it'll move up to tier 2 once we have all the new Medusa stuff. This is the Puppet theme deck, which is just this, so we're going to skip that. Tier 3, I would say, just doesn't... Nah, I would say tier 4. Doesn't really pop off like it should, and it's just missing a lot of good support for it to go with it. Same thing with the Talca deck, you know, Wind Guardians, and, you know, this deck as well. Just good when they pop off, but just a little too slow. Then taking a look, we do have Examon. Definitely tier 3, I think. Can do well under the right pilot, right? I see it topping at a local level pretty decently frequently enough, but I wouldn't call it a tier 2 deck because, again, it takes a big pilot skill, but also there's just so many outs to some of this stuff that it's just not really that good. Then we do have Growl Engine deck. Very solid, crazy strong, I would say. Crossheart sitting strong at tier 2, still does a lot of work. Armors, I think, kind of just fall to the wayside next to this. Can definitely do well at a tier 2 level, but once you start slamming these tier 1 decks against it, I think it does cripple a little bit. Shine Greymon, definitely solid. I think tier 2 deck still pretty good into the format. The lower it's really does well into the lower formats very comfortably. So, and it does pretty well into the field of the tier 2 decks, but just that's where it's going to be. Newest Hunter Hero deck, I would say pretty decently in a tier 2 category. I wouldn't... It's tough, right? I would say it's kind of here. Tier 3 kind of does decently. This deck here, the Apley deck, new support could definitely bring this to tier 2. Will I say it is? Probably not. I think it's solid tier 3. The new support definitely helps a bit because, again, Apley is splashable across the board. Let's get into Desmond. I think Desmond has a little bit better of a field than Gaia, just because what Des does is a little bit more powerful and its core support does really good. This other Apley deck, solid tier 3. I think it just sits comfortably with each other. Levia, definitely still tier 1. Deck proved itself at Nats, still taking tops. Again, once the ban list hits, these open up. Levia always sneaks right back in. Omni version decks. Let's just put all 3 Omnis in again. Very solid deck, tier 1. I wouldn't say the defining meta, though. So many good decks now, and with so many change up in the meta, it's really scary. Balfamon, I definitely think Balfamon's good. I think bottom tier 2, but I wouldn't throw it in tier 3 just yet. I mean, the new support should probably bring this deck right into where it wants to. Eaters is tier 3. I wouldn't call it a tier 2 deck, just very powerful. Then we do have the Adventures. I think solid tier 2 deck as well. Just nothing wrong with that Adventures deck. I think very powerful still. Puppet with Nirmbootmon. I think solid tier 2 is where it's going to be. Next, we do have Jimmy. Jimmy definitely needs just give it better support. It didn't get enough. CS deck, I think solid tier 3, but bring us to tier 2 once we get the new wave of support. I think very much applies to that. Now, Creepymon, I'm going to be straight honest with you. I think it's better than Bagra X any day of the week. I think it's going to take some time for people to adapt the deck. They are definitely going with you just mill the first 5, get to the first effects of the creepy line. And then I think tier 3 would be probably where it's going to sit at right now. It's just got some good things it wants to do, but at the same time, it just, again, milling out your opponent becomes a challenge. Then we have Alphamon or Ryukin sitting at tier 2, I think still pretty solid. Magnetdramon, the deck. This is Pyramides evolved form. I would put it at tier 2 when you're focusing on just Magnetdramon, and then Pyramidi at tier 2 as well. Just they're both very powerful decks. Do I think it's going to scream tier 1? No, but I think both are going to sneak up into the higher tier 2s. Beelzemon, I definitely think is going to be one of the tier 1 decks. It's just it's been long overdue, and it's really great to see that Beelzemon can walk into this format. Gallantmon, still crazy strong. I think one of the decks that is just classified best. I would put Diaboromon at tier 2 right now. Bottom tier 2, close to tier 3, but can do a lot of good stuff. Just now with Wizardmon in the format, I think it does become a little sad. Darkness Bagra, I would say tier 3 here. I think give people time, they might do something with it, but I think it just needs some more focused support. Dragon Lynx, definitely tier 3, can definitely do a lot of shenanigans into the tier 2 field, so not too bad. I would say Blue Flare is at tier 3 at this point. Gaiomon, the deck, pretty decent, especially with Black War Greymon Ace now. I think solid tier 2 for it. We do have Leopard, the deck, Green Ranger, tier 2. I think very powerful deck. Lord Leo is definitely would move it down to tier 4, close to dead deck at this point. Galaxy, very solid tier 1. I didn't want to put it there right away, but seeing it now, the field of tier 1s is evolving and growing. New Demon Lord support in the form of Luce was very powerful, so I'm definitely going to put it at tier 2. Ragnar Lord Mon, tier 3, but if it goes off, when it goes off, it is one of the scariest decks in the room, right? I'm just going to put it there. But Mastamon, solid tier 2 deck into the field. I think there's nothing wrong with that idea there. 3 Great Angels, very solid into the field. I would say tier 2 as well. Hexablau, the deck is basically tier 2. I think it does well into most of the stuff, but I wouldn't call it a tier 3 deck. A lot of the tier 2 it can answer and just hold off and starve, but a lot of decks are starting to develop answers against it. Sinrilmon's focus paired to, the puppet decks in general, the 3 versions that you can play across, definitely solid tier 2 decks. 3 Musketeers, even with the Appley stuff, definitely tier 3. Lilithmon X, the deck, I would say tier 2. Dynamon tier 3 at this point. Skiddymon tier 3. Just definitely needs another wave of support, and I think the deck is fine. Definitely gonna put the Sakuyamon deck down to tier 3 for now. I don't think it's a dead deck, but a lot of people just gave up on once they just got so many hits. Beelzemon, the deck, I would say tier 3. Justimon, even though it's got so many new promos, I would just put it at tier 3, close to just needs a structure deck at this point. Piedmon's deck, aka Dark Soldier, Nightmare Soldiers, pretty solid there. I would put this here. This is El Battlemon. Yeah, tier 2, very powerful deck. Darkness Bagra, get the heck out of here. We're gonna go with, I said Dark Bagramon there. Titanmon. I definitely think DM with Titanmon, still very solid pick with the Chimera and everything like that. But all in all, guys, this is the tier list. I think this is pretty good for what you guys are looking for. I think you guys are waiting for tier lists like this all the time. And I think competitively wise, there is just so many good decks in the tier 2 to tier 1 category that we have a good spread. And, you know, Beelzemon being the one that I think definitely moved up. But again, tier 2 decks can do a lot of crazy shenanigans too. And we'll see what happens on the first weekend of EX-10. But Beelzemon, I think, is one of the decks you're going to be wanting to pick. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.